and good morning, everybody. Whether you're on the East Coast, West Coast, or around the world, we are your Wednesday wrap-up. Mr. U is out on assignment today, so it's just Herb and I, but we're still going to break down the week in sports. How you doing, man?
Is it true that you sent him to Hawaii for the assignment, or can you neither confirm nor deny?
I think I would have sent myself on assignment as well if that was the case. I would definitely sign up for that.
Yes. Not one of the worst assignments ever, huh?
That is for sure.
Get around and look around and gotta go. The Pro Bowl's already over, so sorry.
Yeah, I mean, they don't even get to go there anymore for the Pro Bowl, though.
Right.
That's one of the things that, I mean, well, why not? We'll start with the Pro Bowl because
my bad. Did I segue the wrong way?
No, I mean, I wasn't even really sure if I was going to talk about it, but it happened in sports, so I guess we have to. It's obviously it's not the game that it was when we were kids, where people actually played football and people hit each other. It was like it was a real game. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And then they switch when the game was, so it was no longer after the Super Bowl. Now it was before the Super Bowl. So guys that are in the Super Bowl can't play anymore. And so now you're seeing different talent. I don't want to say lesser, but different talent. I do want
Hundley made it last year.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It was actually going to be one of my examples.
Yeah. You didn't want to insult the Hundley family. I get it.
I mean, it's not like he's a bad dude, but
yeah.
Also probably not a Pro Bowler, especially since it's not even like he started all year.
Right.
So that lets you know how many people got hurt and how the Pro Bowl kind of works now. But, one of the things that is cool about it, I guess, is, they brought back all the skills competitions. So that, that stuff's good to watch. I admittedly didn't watch the game. Like I saw some highlights from it. I did go back and look at Peyton being mad because he lost 2 years in a row to his brother. So, I mean, that was worth watching. But
I feel like the Mannings would be the best part of that. Like, for sure. I was at home on Sunday and never had an inkling to flip over. Even after I started getting alerts, I never thought, let me just check it out. I'd continue to watch bad movies on Sunday afternoon. So that's the extent of my Pro Bowl caring.
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was home, I would have had it on in the background, maybe. But
not a ringing. You will not be on the NFL Pro Bowl commercial.
Definitely not. Yeah, I'm not giving it a glowing endorsement here. But I, instead of watching it, I decided to go and, rearrange and take stuff out of storage. And I put brakes on my truck.
Wow. All righty. Enough said.
What's up, Raj? Thanks for tuning in. How's it going, Wen? So I mean, it's just, I don't know. When they kept talking about potentially getting rid of it, initially I was like, oh no, I mean, maybe let's just make the game better again. And instead they're like, no, we're going to double down on a bad product. And then also now it's not even, now it's not in Hawaii anymore. So it's not even like it's kind of a cool thing to see on screen, right? Like it was just like, oh, okay, it's, I don't know, it's what it is.
It's more, it's an event to be fun for the players, but not necessarily for the viewing audience anymore, is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, hey guys, want to come out to somebody's backyard, we'll barbecue and play a little flag football. That's what it feels like. But
that's what it looks like, really. I mean, because even when you looked at the skill challenges, some of them were the ones you were used to seeing, right? Like the points challenge for quarterbacks and stuff like that. But they also used to have, the bench press challenge, stuff like that isn't there anymore. But they threw water balloons and played dodgeball. So this is 100% like backyard playing with my friends. And there's nothing wrong with that. But could you imagine being the kicker that made it? I mean, you're just there for 4 days. You're never going to do anything.
Yeah. Looking around going, this doesn't look like Hawaii. I thought thought we were going to Hawaii. What happened? So no, I get it. So yeah, I mean, fun for them. I just don't know how it translates or into like kind of must-see TV. So
well, and I didn't see the viewership numbers, but I can't imagine they were great.
Right.
You know, and then of course when I ran a poll on it, the poll numbers were so terrible. You know, when I asked if people were going to watch, it came back as a resounding no. It was I forget what it was. It was like 80. I want to say it was 83.7. I think was the number that said no. Like that is a terrible number, especially considering that wasn't a short panel of votes. I think there was 600 votes in that.
Yeah, the least. Yeah, I mean, I voted no, so I can't even say anything. The least watched Pro Bowl outside of the 2021 virtual celebration.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, because that one was the COVID. Nobody could do anything. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yep. So I think to even that point that's up there where somebody said it was kind of fun watching them have fun, but you watched it while doing other stuff. I don't think anybody made it like appointment viewing. But I think that's kind of all the All-Star games now. You know, the less realism we have in the game, the less, you know.
Yeah.
I said that I do watch the NBA one, knowing there'll be zero defense, but at least people will be trying dunks and alley-oops and long three-pointers. So I'll watch for that. But again, it will be on the second TV while I'm watching something else. Like I don't tune in just to watch the All-Star game.
Exactly. Well, I mean, that's essentially what this would have been too, right? Because I mean, you're going to see them having fun out there playing flag, right? So I mean, that's why I said if I was home, would it have been on a background TV kind of thing? Yeah, I mean, I probably would have done that. It's still, you know, there's still a football. I was going to say that it's still football, but I had to walk that back a little bit. There was still a football on the field.
Correct. And that's about all you can say for it.
Yeah. So, I mean, had there been other sports on, I probably would have watched that or, you know, so, I mean, it just wasn't, it doesn't call to me. I used to watch it every year.
Right.
And so that's what's disappointing about it is it's gotten to the point where you're just like, yeah, I probably don't need to watch that. So hopefully they do something because I'd hate to see the Pro Bowl go away.
Right.
Right. Because if the viewership's bad enough, the NFL will scrap it. I mean, you know,
you'll still get your votes because I know it's in like contracts and stuff like that. But then we just won't see anything that week. Yeah, that'd be especially with this 2-week gap, you know, in between the Super Bowl. Seems like you're going to have to fill that with something. So.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't used to, though, because it used to be the championship game, and then there was a bye week, and then you had the Super Bowl, and then you had the Pro Bowl. So, I mean, there was still an open week. But, you know, obviously the season was shorter, and, you know, there were significant differences. It was also earlier in the year, right? Like it wasn't now approaching mid-February.
Right.
Right around New Year's. So
Right. Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I do hope that they kind of revive the product though, because I mean, although it's, you know, there's elements of it that are cool, it's not making me watch. And I feel like at some point they're going to look at that as, okay, we're losing money on this deal.
Right. Agreed.
All right.
To see what they come up with.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's already flagged, so I don't know if they can actually ever bring that back.
One day you're going to tune in, they're going to be playing Madden.
I mean, they'd probably actually get a lot more viewers if they did that. If it was a live feed on Twitch, all of a sudden your demo, the age changes, but you'd probably end up with a lot of viewers. Yeah. So on the coaching front, Cliff Kingsbury, right, was slated to go to the Raiders as the OC, was even announced, right? Shefty, although he likes to jump the gun, so sometimes you can't always rely on what he says.
Right.
But he put it out there. He's like, oh yeah, you know, he's on his way to sign, and then bails out last second, and then a day later signs with the Commanders. It makes you wonder what happened on that flight to Vegas, where you're just like, you know, how about no?
Right. Well, am I two things I wonder. Does the Ben Johnson thing, factor into that with the timing of that? So and that's one thing I didn't see. And also, was it just as simple as having the number 2 pick in the draft versus having the number 13 pick in the draft? And having maybe to be able to shape the future quarterback. So those are the first 2 things I looked at. Obviously, if you get an offensive minded coach maybe coming in there and you're going to go as OC, then maybe I'm not doing that. I don't know. But as far as 2 jobs, I don't know if either one was like even more inviting, but it could be just as simple as the number 2 pick and I get to pick my next quarterback and have a little more, control over my future. So.
Yeah, I guess. The pick difference obviously could be a thing, but it's not like you went to an offensive head coach versus defense because you're talking about either Pierce or Quinn.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. Just kind of a weird. It was weird that he bailed out when he did.
Right. Oh no, I agree. Yeah.
Because it was. Everybody was already reporting like, oh, he's going to be the guy. He's supposed to sign today. And then he's just like, yeah, just kidding. Maybe college is still cool. And then, and then to turn right around and be like, yeah, just kidding, going to Washington.
Right.
That was strange, but
that was me kind of grasping at straws, like looking at the reasons. I was like, I wonder if it's that, because otherwise it's just kind of, and it makes you wonder about the commitment level when you're like, all right, man, you said one thing and you always, but I guess these guys don't care. They're whatever, man. We got our guy. We don't care anymore. So.
Yeah, once you're in the building, you're in the building, right? Yeah, so, right. And then you build to the future, and maybe the Oakland thing did have to do with there wasn't a head coach quite yet for Washington, to your point, right? So, maybe that was a thing. I suppose if you're an OC and then you have an offensive head coach, you could be looking at that like, had Ben Johnson got there. Right. Be like, okay, well, how diminished is my role if I do that? Right. So, I guess I kind of get that.
Yeah. Well, to that point, like, look at what Washington had with Eric Bieniemy. Look at how he felt in Kansas City, and he felt like it didn't affect him. Which also, now he's getting fired out of that position. I don't know where he's going to end up. I guess that's a whole other subject. But that's how I look at it. If I'm an OC, and I have a chance to play for a defensive head coach, and I think I'm going to have a little bit more free reign and can actually kind of show what I can do versus the other way around. That's how I look at it from the outside. So.
No. I'm with you there. And of course, the Bieniemy situation is interesting because Quinn gets it there and his quote is, I really respect you, but we're not going to work together. It's like,
I know
there's a million better ways to word that.
I know. I said, did you write that yourself? Because you need hand it to the speechwriters or whoever is the PR people and let them take this one over, because that was just a terrible, that didn't even.
Right. Like that is the douchiest statement ever.
Yes.
Be like, oh yeah. You know what? You're great. You're great, buddy. Yeah. We're not going to work together.
No.
You can pound sand, but
yeah, that's that character in the TV sitcom that you hate. That's what he just said. The one that we're all rooting against and say, oh my God, that's what he just said. I was like, this can't be a real quote. That was my first honest thought. This can't be a real quote, because that's just crazy. So
he 100% is that disappointed, condescending dad. He just didn't throw Buckaroo in there. Right. He was just like, you're really good, Buckaroo. Good job. Yeah.
Wow.
You're not going to be on my little league team, but keep up the work. Yeah. No, that was the most ridiculous quote.
Yeah. I was like, did he hurt your feelings? Did are you guys beefing and we just don't know about it? The most random feud of all times, Dan Quinn versus Eric Bieniemy.
That would be a bizarre one, but the way that statement came out, you're not wrong. That 100% could have been they had something years ago. I don't know, but it was just a weird way to, especially that last part, right? The first part, oh yeah, I really respect you. That, all of that makes sense until you turn around and be like, but we ain't working together.
All was missing at the very end was bye.
Yeah, it would be like that Cricket wireless commercial that would be like, bye.
Yeah, exactly. They might put that in the next one. Here's Dan Quinn. So I don't know. I read that one too and thought it was crazy. The whole situation is weird, but I guess it's like you said, if you end up with your guy, they get in the building, then you just don't worry about the rest at that point. So
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's business. You gotta make the moves you gotta make. But there's still open positions, right? Obviously, Oakland still needs one. Seattle still needs one. So I actually wouldn't hate Bieniemy coming to the West Coast. I mean, I feel like he could have legitimately had a shot at a head coach outside of everything you hear about his interviews. It sounds like he interviews like a coordinator. Right. And I mean, that'll be tough to overcome, right? Because you got to be able to explain how it is you're going to lead men and all of that. And not to say that he can't, but interviews matter. Yeah. So, but I do think him leaving there, if he does go somewhere like Seattle, might speed up his course to become a head coach, because he's going to go to a team that in theory should have success right away. It's a team that has a lot of pieces on the roster, as opposed to if you're the OC in Washington and you are essentially building from nothing, right?
Right.
I mean, new owners, new GM, new coaches, and largely going to be new players because you have a lot of cap, a lot of picks, and not a lot on the roster.
Right. No, and I agree. I think that's the kind of situation he needs to kind of prove it's him versus, hey, was it Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? I think he's still trying to get out of that shadow. And it was really a lost year in Washington. That didn't really do anything. That didn't move the needle at all. So no, I agree with you 100% on that one.
And I could actually see Washington doing this because Cliff is so familiar with Caleb. They'd have to give up a lot to go get him. They do have a lot to give up, though. They have a lot of draft picks. They do have a lot of cap space. So, I mean, if they wanted to go get him, they do have the assets to go get him.
Right. But if I'm Washington, knowing how much I need and knowing that I'm probably just as high on Drake May, I sit at number 2. Sit at number 2.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Houston last year. I think they wanted Stroud. I think people, there was a fight between Young and Stroud. And Houston last year, I sit at number 2 and just take whoever's left. And I think you're doing really well as Washington. I don't give up draft capital to move up to number 1. Let somebody else do that.
Exactly. Especially because of how deep this quarterback draft is.
Right.
Like if you don't get Caleb, it doesn't matter.
No.
Like your first 3 guys can ball out.
Yeah.
I mean, really, this first 6 guys can effectively do the job.
Yep.
So I don't see a reason to go get him either, other than the fact that Cliff worked with Caleb so much.
Right.
So, I mean, if they were gonna do it, they have the ability to do it. But like you said, I personally wouldn't. I wouldn't give up the assets when you figure I can be in the next pick, and I'm gonna get one of those 2 dudes. Yep. And the Bears are either going to trade down, or they're going to take a receiver, or they're going to take Caleb, right? I mean, those are the only 3 things that can happen. And I mean, if they take a receiver, you can get Caleb. If someone else jumps in there, there's no guarantee that, Williams is the guy, right? Yeah. I mean, any one of those first 3 can go. So.
Agreed. And you're in a spot too where Howell is still there, I guess, for a year. So whoever you get doesn't necessarily have to start next year either. So you don't have to throw him into a bad situation. So
I mean, they probably kind of
do. I just look at kind of what happened with Bryce Young, I guess, and I'm thinking. Look what happened with CJ Stroud. It worked out great. So I guess I see both sides of it. But
yeah, well, so the thing with Bryce is he went to a spot where it was utter chaos. Right. Like you get an organization where Tepper is
crazy,
unpredictable.
Okay. Political versus non-political.
Right. The diplomatic way to say it. Yeah. But then you go to an organization that has fired 4 coaches in 2 years, which shouldn't even be possible. And then you go to, you're there, they give up all of your weapons to come and get you, right? So now you're a quarterback. You have no offensive line. You have no weapons. Your defense is average at best. You have no cap space, and you have no draft capital. Like that, I would be so mad if I was drafted into that situation. But like, oh, cool. So we're just gonna suck. That's what we're doing. All right.
Right.
Cool. Like,
right. I agree with that one. Yeah. I tried not to harp on it too, because obviously Alabama fans, we're on Bryce Young, so I'm never sure if I'm looking at it objectively, but that just looks. I told you how I do sometimes. I'll listen to a podcast from those teams to get their perspective. And they're saying the same thing. They're like, we don't know what we have in Bryce Young because everything else is so bad right now. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how y'all managed to win 2 games.
I mean, unfortunately, that is essentially what Justin Fields is with the Bears, right? Yeah. Like, you still don't really know what he has because he's had an offensive line where he's trying to get murdered all the time. It's just like, okay, I mean, he might be good. We don't really know. We know he can run because he's had to. Like,
and they gave him one weapon for 1 year, and he was hurt for part of the year. So they still are like, I don't know, man.
Well, and it's not like they did a ton of work to that offensive line. So was it better? Sure. Measurably, it wasn't like leaps and bounds better, right? Like, you're just like, okay, like it's better than it was last year. Okay, well, I mean, it was almost last in production last year. So I mean,
you were a 0 last year, so you're getting to 2. And that's great.
Like, what are we talking about now? I mean, yeah, it's better, but I mean, I feel like there's a scale we should probably mention of like, yeah, it's better, but it's not like better, right? Like it's just like, oh, it's like you tripped up the stairs, right? Like you technically were climbing, but you still fell down. Like,
that's a good analogy for it. Yeah. So. But it's amazing how many of these teams like will spend the draft cap or draft somebody high or get a quarterback in that prime position and then think they're just going to fix it. It's not like basketball. You can get a great basketball player and maybe change your franchise. Football, you can get a great quarterback and not fix anything else, and you're just going to be terrible. And it's like some of these teams are still figuring that out. Oh, you mean I have to have a line for this guy? Yeah, and maybe somebody to throw to. Those are, hey, just spitball in here. But those are the kind of things I would look at, So.
Well, I mean, I was going to say the quarterback can't throw it to himself, but Lamar showed us he could do that. So
he did. But if you're banking on that every time,
it's not going to work out.
This is not going to work out.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that was the biggest thing with Fields, right? I mean, now he's far enough in his career, someone's going to have to pay him, whether it's the Bears or wherever he goes. And I mean, you still don't really know if he can play,
right?
Because I mean, he's had very little time. And when he has been able to throw, he's still pressured. So his air yards on the ball are nominal, right? Like, he's thrown to the flat and like little bubble screens and stuff like that because he doesn't have time to launch it down the field. So he might even be able to throw that ball well. We have no idea.
Right.
I mean, I'm going to go with probably not because he never gets to do it. So, but I don't know. I feel bad for Fields because, again, he's probably not going to get a great contract because you still don't know what he is.
His years. Yeah.
I mean, when we looked at it was probably one of the funniest things in this preseason was, he first got the couple of weapons, right? And it's preseason game anyway, so it's already hilarious because if you put up yards, people lose their minds. They're like, oh yeah, look at all these yards. Like, yeah, you're playing against dudes that are going to be working at Target next month. Like,
that last guy. That guy might make the team, and those guys won't. So
exactly.
Good luck.
But he goes. If I remember right, he goes 3 for 3 for 169 and 3 touchdowns. Right, and you're just on a stat sheet. You're like, all right, yeah, cool. He's got some weapons. They're putting up points. And then when you looked at the air yards, it was like -2. It's like, well, I mean, I could throw to the flat.
Right. and hope that guy does some work.
Right. Like, I mean, if they're just superior athletes and they take it from the flat to the house, you don't have to be a great quarterback.
Right.
I mean, you could add a running back, throw that out there.
Yeah. No, we've had that. We've actually had that position, here in Alabama for a couple of years where you just had guys that could take it to the house. And sometimes it does disguise, that's where I guess the analytics come into play, actually deep dive into what's going on. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's funny. That was funny. So I was laughing at Raj because you already got him started.
Yeah, I know.
This is your fault, Bo.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, it's so where I bring your brain is like a bag of cats is because you think of how much thrashing and chaos would happen if you put a cat in a bag. And so that's where that stems from.
Yeah. And Raj heard it. He forgot to get it into the show last night. So
okay.
Now he's bringing it back to you. So that's what.
That's awesome. So I guess on the Ben Johnson front, that was an interesting situation too. You know, at first when I heard about it, it's just like, okay, he pulled his name from it. Some of it, you know, it was rumored that he wanted too much money, right? They were saying somewhere in the $15 million range, which is more than what Harbaugh got for a guy that is, you know, largely unproven at the head coaching role. But then it sounded, and I didn't think it was going to hurt his stock moving forward. But then how Washington found out might make it a little more challenging, because other owners may not love the fact that they found out via Twitter before they found out. They were already on the airplane to come and meet with him. And it gets released on Twitter that he's pulled himself out of the job. So they actually found out because of Twitter before they actually got the text. And then at the same time, are you really turning down the job via text? Like, doesn't that seem like that would warrant a phone call?
Definitely.
Or something you're
or
asking
face to face? Yeah, something.
$1 million for?
Yeah, something. That's how, like, I don't know, teenagers break up, or, you know, so like middle schoolers break up. That's not how you turn down a job. So I think what it does is put more pressure on this next year for him. Not that he already didn't have it. You know, they were half away from making the Super Bowl. But if you do something like this and then the offense looks terrible next year also, they will use that against you. You know, even if you get a job, your asking price is definitely coming down. Like, you can't go in, you know, let's say next year Lions crater, the offense looks terrible, Goff regresses, and, you know, they out in the first round or miss the playoffs altogether. You can't go into an interview asking for $15 million after that, after what you pulled also, because you know how the owners are. They're a little fraternity too as well. They talk to each other.
Even when they don't like each other.
Yeah, they might hate each other, but you know, Cleveland's been getting flack for years over that contract they gave to Deshaun. So the owners will get together if needed, and so it puts more pressure on what you've got going on next year. To me, now if he has a stellar year next year and they look great again on offense, I mean, then they got the weapons to do it. Sometimes I almost feel like I could coach what they've got going on over there. But
I mean, imagine that confidence you have to have if they do just crater, that offense is terrible, and you walk into that and you're just like, I did
that. And we're like, I mean, I guess you did, but
pay me.
So
show me the money.
Yeah. But I'll say this. I personally, I mean, obviously Washington will be looking for him next year anyway, hopefully. But I would never forget it. Like, oh, you really broke up with me over text? I'm that guy. 5 years from now, I'll probably still remind you about it.
Yeah, well, I would say that his ability to go to Washington is out the door. You know, especially with this ownership group, because of the comments that came out of, there's just no football guys in that room. And it's just like, man, even if you're thinking that, that's something you keep in-house, like in this area. You just leave that in there. That's something you tell your buddy over a beer where you're like, they're all dumb. But you don't put that out in the world, especially in a situation where there's 32 of those jobs total.
Right.
Like, it's not like you're going to work for Microsoft or something where, you know, there's, you know, a few 100,000 employees. There's 32 of those dudes. So you probably don't want to immediately negate one of the options. Yes.
Yeah. And it's 32 and only about, 7 or 8 come open every year. So you're in a very limited, like, all right, this is where I'm interviewing every year. And out of those 8, like 4 of them are probably off the top of your head, like, I don't want to go there when that one comes open. So probably not. Don't limit your pool at all. So maybe it's something in Washington though, with Quinn, Bieniemy, Johnson. Like, what is it? As soon as you get into Washington airspace, that everything just goes to crap. Like, I don't know. So,
I mean, that would make sense.
From now on, all meetings are going to be in, like, I don't know, Atlanta or something. Like, no more going to Washington talk. No more interviews in Washington. No more cameras. You guys go there to practice and play, but all the interviews will be done outside. So,
I mean, it's been a while since that team's been good, and
so everybody's just angry.
extreme dysfunction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's man. So Mahomes Sr. gets arrested on a third DUI.
Yeah.
So it seems crazy to me that family has so much chaos around Patrick Mahomes all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got his brother and his sister-in-law, and they're just, they're their own enigma. And I mean, so I even get why the dad drinks.
But, he's like, yeah.
But I feel like you could probably afford an Uber.
Yeah.
DUIs are expensive. So
yep.
It seems.
Do you ever think Patrick's just like, Dad, come on, Dad. Like, you're going to make the news just because I just want to play football. Like, I just want to play football, And you never hear anything about Patrick Mahomes, right? So it's like, do you ever think he just sits everybody down and like, can y'all just shut the, up for just 2 seconds? Be normal.
Can I send you on a vacation to the moon so I can focus on what I'm doing?
Yeah.
I mean, it was funny, though. I was watching some of the Radio Row footage, and they asked him what his favorite or what his best Kermit impression was. And you could tell he was just pissed, right? He's like, I'm talking. That's it. If you haven't seen the clip, check it out, because you could see on his face, like, if I could stab you and not get in trouble,
I would do it.
This would be that time. Yeah, no, it's pretty fantastic. I would love to have been, or still be, down there on Radio Row doing all the the interviews and stuff, because it sounds like you there's enough of the players and staff just kind of walking around that if you're in there, it's pretty easy to, just stop a guy for a minute, do interviews and stuff. So I think even if I weren't to go watch the game, I would definitely want to try and get my media credentials to get in there just for that, because I think that'd be a ton of fun.
Do you have crazy questions planned, though, or are you going to keep it serious?
No, I'd keep it serious. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'd keep it serious. I wouldn't be like, what kind of sugar do you like on cornflakes? Like, yeah, I wouldn't do any of that.
Yeah, we're gonna need those credentials back.
But, I mean, there were crazy questions like that. So, like, one of them that I heard was, if you were robbing a bank, who would you want as your, who would you want on your crew, right? Like, who's your getaway driver and stuff? I'm just like, we're playing football later, right? Like that.
I'm laughing at that, but I'm writing that question down for the questions of death on our show. So those are where those questions come into play. Not in serious media at all. So.
What it makes you think is maybe they tied one on a little too much the night before. They were still kind of hammered walking in, because I mean, this is Vegas, right? So it's not like they're down playing somewhere where it's going to be all football all the time. Like, there's no shortage of fun things to do in Vegas.
Right.
So
they woke up and said, oh crap, I've got an interview coming up in like 5 minutes.
Exactly. You're like, I'm not even showering, just throw some gel in the hair and hope it works out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm sure before that question, they're like, you smell like vodka. It's mouthwash, I swear. It's
I swear. Yeah. That doesn't play on the radio anyway. Come on.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I think it'd be a ton of fun to be down there, though. So I do want to try and get to the draft this year, though. It's in Detroit. Should be a cheaper ticket.
Wow. Shots fired. We apologize to any Detroit fans. Sorry.
So one of my friends is probably watching that lives right there in Michigan. So
nice.
that was mostly for them.
Wait till they see you in person when you come to the draft.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's cool though. She actually lives relatively close, so I'd probably actually stay at her house, so I wouldn't have to rent a hotel, which would be cool.
Oh, nice. When you wake up and she's got a pillow over your head, don't panic.
Hey, yeah, that's right. Just accept the darkness.
Oh Lord.
Oh man. So, one of the other things, sticking with the NFL, is the NFL's trying to buy a major stake of ESPN.
Yeah.
Which seems kind of crazy in the way that they make. I think they get paid. I think the number was $2.7 billion a year to air the NFL. I mean, do they think they're going to make more money by owning them? I mean, that's a chunk of cash on its own.
Yeah.
Besides, it's nice to have one of them not actually part of the NFL, so that maybe there's some decent reporting. Not that they're going to say anything bad about the NFL anyway, right? But
right. When I was reading the articles about it, to your exact point right there, the first where it started with talking about the show Playmakers, which I enjoyed back in the day. It was crazy. Like, I mean, what was it? The kicker, I think, murdered somebody, or one of the players murdered somebody, and there was plenty of, like, it was over the top.
It's called Playmakers.
Yeah, it was called Playmakers. It aired on ESPN for one season. It was crazy. There was a storyline between the backup running back and the new running back, drug use. It was a crazy over the top one. But the NFL hated the portrayal of it, and it got canceled after one season. And it was just like watching a soap opera with football.
Sure.
So to that point, like, stuff like that, and then the reporting is what every article and everybody's saying. Like, you're not going to get, ESPN will not be reporting any bad stories, or deep diving into bad stories if NFL has a stake in it. So, yeah. And then I guess my last concern is, do we get more kind of pay-per-view-ish events, or like you have to get on this streaming, or hey, this one NFL game's ESPN Plus if you start to do this partnership? I don't know if it goes that far, but I always feel like whenever a merger like this comes out, the losers ends up being us somehow, because they're going to try and extract more money for it.
So. Yeah, well, it makes you wonder if they would merge NFL.com or NFL Plus into ESPN Plus.
I would think you'd have to.
Yeah, because, I mean, otherwise, I guess you're already making people pay for two streaming services anyway. So maybe you wouldn't, honestly. Right. Maybe they'd be like, you know what, we're gonna also own Paramount and make you pay for that one too. Like, yeah. I mean, I could see the NFL doing that. It's for a company that is technically a nonprofit, they sure make a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I don't like it, I guess, on the face of it. So sure. I guess we'll see. But and like you said, I don't see the point. You're doing just fine on your own, and ESPN as a separate entity works for me. So I don't know.
Well, and it's not like they go crazy diving into bad stories anyway. But I mean, right. at this point, you're not going to hear about them hardly at all, which, right. I mean, seems unrealistic. Like, there's stuff happens, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like it from just a journalistic standpoint. If you own all the media, then all of a sudden it's very easy to hide stuff. I mean, not that the bad stories get a lot of press anyway, but still, I mean, Aaron Hernandez weirdly got less press than you would have thought for straight up murdering people. Right? Yeah. Like, you didn't hear about it on ESPN and, NFL, and you saw that on Dateline and NBC, and you're just like, okay. I mean, I feel like
these are stuff you should be covering just a little bit more.
Like, I feel like these, it seems like a big story.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but
yeah,
No,
I agree. It is weird the way things work like that, but I mean, not to get too political, that's our regular media as well. So I guess it's like,
it totally is. It totally is.
So
yeah. I got to say, that was one of the things living out of the country that was very interesting, is how different the media is, right? So, like, if you're watching the news, obviously there's less about the U.S. because it's a different country and they don't care. But it also is less bias, right? Because they also don't care. Right? So they're just like, oh yeah, this craziness is happening in the US, and they're kind of dumb, and so it is what it is.
Right.
You watch it and you're like, yeah, no, that seems fair. And then you get into our stuff and they're like, it happened because kangaroos are purple, and you're just like, I don't what?
Yeah, yeah. Don't see the correlation. Don't care. Can I just get my regular news? So
exactly. Yeah, it. Yeah, I don't know. The So speaking of pay channels, I guess Paramount, they had their one pay to view, basically, right? Playoff game, and it was the largest streaming game, right? Or I mean, streaming episode of whatever, right? Streaming show. We'll go with. Right. So that sounds good on its face. It was the least watched show of the playoffs, and it fell way short of the average viewers. So or Peacock, sorry. The Peacock rating of that game was 23 million.
Right.
And the average of the playoffs was 38.5. So significantly lower than the average. But it was marginally lower than the rest of the wild card games. So the wild card games are generally watched less, and it's not like it's the NFC Championship game where there's 50 million people watching that. Most of the wild card games were in the upper 20s. So I mean, they were light about 5 million viewers being on a paid, on the streaming service. And it was probably only that high because of the teams that were in it.
Right.
Because if it was some of the other teams, I bet that would have been in the teens somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talked about, I think before going into it, they selectively, like, let's get Kansas City in here. I think you really might have had two choices, Kansas City and Dallas, maybe are the ones where you're going to keep your viewership. And I know they'll never put Dallas on a Saturday night like that. At least I don't feel like they would for the wild card game and on a pay-per-view. But I'd never expected the ratings to be super high for a game like that. I watched that more because Rod's a Dolphins fan, and so I was kind of more invested in it. But even then, I want to say it was background. I don't remember watching like the entire game for that. Like I said, it's a Saturday night, and it's a wild card round. This rarely matters that much. Obviously, Kansas City makes it the whole way, but you don't really think about that as much. So I could see why it would be hurt. And then I was looking at, I guess, the demographics and all that kind of stuff. Like younger viewers watched it more. That was part of the breakdown. Like it did better than Chargers Jags last year in the same spot. Well, it was Chargers Jags last year.
No, exactly. So imagine if it was Chargers Jags on a streaming service, like you'd have been close to 13 million probably.
Yeah, exactly.
It wouldn't have been awesome. I mean, to be fair, I went to a game night with some friends. And we played board games. It was on in the background, and then I watched it for real the next morning. But it was only on because they had Peacock.
Right.
Because I don't have Peacock. I'm like, I'm not buying this service for one game.
For one game, right.
Yeah, this is dumb. So yeah, we were over at some friend's house playing board games.
And that's about what it's going to be. People are going to do their normal activities on Saturday. If it happens to involve the game, great. But you're not missing the Super Bowl. You're not missing the championship game. So you're like, if I miss this one, I'll be okay. I'll hang out Saturday night, do whatever. I'll sleep in on Sunday and still watch actual football on regular channels. So I'll be fine. So that's how I approach it.
Yeah, well, and that's essentially what I did. Is the next morning, because we had games anyway, right, on that Sunday. And so I just slid it into a time slot that would have normally had football, and then watched the game so that I could actually accurately report on it. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't gonna sign up for a 7-day trial or any of that stuff for one game. Plus, if you've ever signed up for one of those 7-day trials, the first thing you know is it's almost impossible to get it canceled in time to not get charged at least one of the months.
Right.
It's one of those.
We have to set our reminders for like 4 days before. And I've still missed half of those every time we do a
Oh, for sure. Or it's the ones where they're like, you have to talk to an actual person.
Oh.
You're like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then you get that message. They're like, your call is important to us. Not important enough to hire people, but
Yes.
You're going to be on hold for 3 hours to try and cancel this $30 service.
Yes. Yeah. Or and this will date myself for sure, but you get the AOL person on the phone, and canceling is almost impossible. They throw Rolls Royces at you and Mercedes, and, you're just like, I just want to cancel, please. Well, sir, what if we come to your house and clean?
We'll send you 25 discs that have 380 hours on them.
Yes. Like, I'm just done. Can I just be done? No. So.
Nope. No, that was that's probably one of the funnier ones that I encounter. Whether it was with my auto repair business or HVAC, was when you'd get people's info and they still have the AOL emails.
Wow.
You're just like, I mean, way to hang tough on that, right? I mean, it's, they still work, right? Because I mean, the company was bought out, but I mean, multiple times.
Yeah. And you just figured, I'm never changing.
What's that?
And then they just figure, I'm just never changing this email. Like, this is it. Stuck with this for life.
I mean, I guess if they still work, hey. I mean, why not, I guess? It's like the old Hotmail ones, too. I mean, you still encounter them from time to time. Oh, man. All right. So, finally going to get some field upgrades around the league with the World Cup coming in 26. Do you think these fields stay grass?
I mean, so I guess they're trying. Oh wow, Raj. No, Raj. Sorry. So there's more, I guess, money wise. So the players want grass fields, right? That's what they want to stick with. The owners want to save money, I guess, by going away from it and keeping upkeep.
True, but if they're being forced into putting them in anyway,
right? Do they just stay that way?
I
would like to say yes. I would like to say yes.
It would be the time to do it, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're already being forced into it, everybody's going that way. I believe it's the same year that the NFLPA has to renew their negotiations.
So you think it slides into there then?
Yeah, I think they try and force that in because a lot of the places that have turf fields are getting these games. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden it's like, well, if you were ever gonna do it, that's the time, right? Because like Seattle gets a game, Philly gets a game, New York gets a game. Like these are all turf fields. So if you're already having to yank that turf out, and then again, I think the NFLPA's negotiations are that year, 26. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong. Right.
I know there's a fight between it because they keep releasing studies and like the people against it are like, oh, there's no difference in it, injury wise.
There 100% is difference. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I feel go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was just having played on all the surfaces.
Right.
Like I played on natural grass. I played on field turf. I played on the original AstroTurf.
Yeah. Okay.
So that stuff is terrible.
Yeah.
Talk about rug burns, man. That was the one. Like
one of the first things I heard about that too.
Oh, you'd be missing like half your arm. Like that stuff was horrendous when you went down on it. But field turf is significantly better. But the biggest thing is if you plant, there's a lot of grip to it. Mm-hmm. And if it's dry, if it's wet, it's real slick. But if it's dry, your cleats will really grip, and which is why it's so fast, right? Like you'll hit speeds faster on turf than you will on grass because you have that grip. There's no slide. The problem with that is if you like the way Rodgers snapped his Achilles, right? You see his foot come up, right? And he's not, it doesn't give any slide. And so, all of your tendons are essentially a rubber band, just overextends that pop, right? Had that been grass, in his scenario, does it still pop? Entirely possible, right? Who knows? But your foot does end up with a little bit of slide because of the dirt. And so some of those injuries do get avoided. Now, are other injuries, possible? Of course. It's football. You get hit.
Somebody's going to, I get that.
ACLs still go down. Like, ACL tears are probably about the same regardless of which surface, because that's generally a lateral movement that knocks them out. But I mean, it's definitely better in that way. But yeah, the people that are saying, "Oh, you're not going to get hurt," are they're dumb. Like there's no study that's going to say that is a real thing.
This is my favorite part, where the people who don't play are telling the people that play that they're fine. No, it's fine. It's the same thing. Like, I've run the simulations. It's fine. Like, have you actually gone out there? No. Didn't need to go out there. Ran the simulations. And I think there's always a disconnect between the people who make decisions, the people who actually have to do it. And that's every job, by the way, not just NFL. So not just the shot at them. But I think we all understand that,
Yeah.
Your boss will always tell you something that's not feasible. And you're like, all right. I guess.
Especially if they've never done the job. Like if they were just appointed into that position, they're like, do this thing. It's like, yeah. So let me tell you about physics for a minute.
Are you sitting down? This is going to take a minute here.
you need the crayons and the pop-up? Is that,
Yeah. No, we run into all the time. So, yeah, I hope they just, like you said, if they have to and they're forced into it already, just go with it. Leave it at grass. Make everybody happy. And that's a concession to make in it anyway, that you're already, all right, we'll do this thing that we were already doing just for you guys. Make yourself look a little better.
Well, that's the thing, is you're already spending the money to have to rip those fields out and put these other fields in. So it seems like if you were going to do it, just do it in a smart way and make it a permanent fixture. It seems simple. I don't know. I don't know why this is so hard, especially because half of the fields already have it anyway.
Right.
So it's not like you're like, oh, all 32 teams have to do it. And of course, some of these fields are shared anyway. And those shared fields, weirdly, are the ones that have turf. So both of like SoFi also, it's one of the World Cup locations, so it'd have to have grass in it too. And who knows? Do you do what Vegas is doing and they roll it outside? If it's one of the open air stadiums, you don't have to do that. Like Seattle, that'd be an easy one. It rains here plenty. That field would be fine.
Okay, I got you. Be interesting to see then. Be interesting to see.
The league is headed to Brazil.
Eesh.
Got Sam. Paulo.
If I could afford it,
man, it'd be fun. At least this one's in the same time zone, right?
Yeah.
Sao Paulo, I believe, is New York time. So it's not like it would have to be. I don't mind it on the West Coast having a 6 a.m. game because it's in London.
Right.
Like that's a great game for me because I wake up at 4 a.m. anyway. So I get up, I get to watch some football immediately, and everyone else is asleep. So I even get to watch it intently.
No distractions.
Yeah.
No offense to anyone in the house, but no distractions.
No, it is what it is. Like when you're trying to take notes.
Yeah.
it's a thing. But yeah, I like all the foreign games anyway. Like they're always kind of entertaining. It's awesome to see fan bases around the world get excited. Obviously, this is the first one in Brazil, and as crazy as they are for soccer, I wonder if they bring that type of energy to the NFL.
The football game, yeah. If they did, that makes for an amazing game. So I've watched the Euro Championships in soccer. Yep. Because the atmosphere comes through the screen. They do a really good job of piping that in. You can just feel every moment. So you come anywhere close to that for an NFL game, it'll be great. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that'll be – I think it'll be a fun watch. What was surprising is the stadium they selected only holds 49,000 people.
So do you think they're expecting less and just trying to get that packed in? Is that why? Are they hedging their bets as far as?
That's kind of what I was thinking, because when I was reading about it, it's the 5th largest stadium in the country. Mm-hmm. So it seems like there was other options, like when they went to Mexico City, that thing holds, close to 100,000, and when they're in Europe, also larger stadiums generally. So it was interesting that they went to one that is smaller than, I think it's actually smaller than any of the stadiums in the US. So I think the only one that would even be close, I think it's either Green Bay or Chicago's, right? I think those are the two smaller ones. But it just, I don't know, seemed weird that they went.
Chicago is 61,000.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the smaller stadiums.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, so it was interesting to see them go to one that is kind of smaller. And I wonder if it's just because they don't know how many people are actually going to go and they want to have a sellout crowd.
Right.
And then
you take that though as the low faith. Is that a bad start or is it smart business?
That's smart business because you want to have when you have your film crew down there, you want to have every seat full, right? So I think that's kind of a smart business thing because then you get to say, oh, this game sold out in an hour and a half. It's packed in here, standing room only. Like that all sounds great because they're never going to be like, oh yeah, but there's only 49,000 seats. They're going to be like, this stadium is packed.
Right.
Look at the excitement. So, I mean, do I think they could have sold out a bigger stadium? I do. I mean, but this probably won't be the last one there either, realistically.
Yeah.
But to add to the craziness that is the NFL down there will be the next day, because this is actually a Friday game to open the season. The next day is Brazil's Independence Day.
Oh, wow.
So it's about to be a crazy time. Yeah. So you're going to have the Eagles go down. We don't know who they're playing yet. They're going to go down, play Friday night, and then the next day is their Independence Day, which will be insane.
So you'll be drinking before the game, during the game, after the game, and then all into the night. So
100%. Yeah. Plus, their Independence Day is on a Saturday. So, I mean, it's already going to be crazy. You know how the 4th of July is here. So
like, that's what I'm thinking. When you said that, that's what I'm thinking. Like, yeah, it's going to be nuts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean,
is this a calculated move? Did they pick that just to help add to everything? I mean,
no, I think it's just a happy accident, right? The league opens up on the Thursday before, right?
Okay.
On the 5th. So this was just sort of they're like,
all came together.
We did a thing and it worked out, you know.
Pat myself on the back, said I planned the whole thing. Exactly.
Well, we're not going to have time to chat about this, the MLB Hall of Fame snub of Sheffield. We'll have to curb that for next week.
Definitely. But, I've been reading a lot about that, so I definitely want to. Yeah, I remember him growing up too, you know, so it's like.
Yeah, he was a stud. A stud. So for him to lose his eligibility, right, because this was the last year he was eligible, you know, it was disappointing. Yeah, similar with guys like Omar Vizquel, right? An 11-time Gold Glover. This I think was his 7th year, and he ended up with like 12 or 13% of the vote. So that sure doesn't look like a trend that's going to have him get in either.
Right.
Which is insane when you look at what he did over his career.
Right.
So yeah, we'll definitely touch on that. We will touch on this 65 game NBA rule also. And I mean, why I like part of it and why some of it is dumb.
Yeah. I will say this, it's going to be hard for them to get a lot of support from the fans because we want to see you guys out there more anyway. Especially, you know, if you're getting 40 million and playing like less than 80% of your games, it's going to be tough to get our support. So
no, I mean, so that's the part where I'm like, it had to happen because load management has gotten to a spot where they're basically part-time employees.
Right.
But then, you know, when it comes to they're stripping awards and, you know, if you're injured, you know, not to say that you were going to win anyway. Right. Because, I mean, it's hard to win an MVP or something like that if you're
not playing,
missing, you know, more than 20% of your games anyway. But to make you ineligible for it seems a little bit out of hand. But I mean, if they weren't all crazy with the load management situation, we wouldn't have had this rule have to happen. So I don't feel bad for them.
Yeah, you're right. Something had to be done. So
absolutely. All right. Well, let everybody know how they can find you, and then we got to get out of here.
We'll see that you see us on our Twitter feed there, and then you look at us Herb and Raj podcast on YouTube for all our videos, our all live broadcasts, and any replays.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to stay tuned for the next hour here on Roku. If you are watching on YouTube, whether it's on my channel or Herb and Raj, be sure to like and subscribe. Helps us bring our content to you. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys.